Hello, cultured individuals. CJ here. In case you haven't noticed, we have entered the golden age of waifus. VTubers dominated the streaming scene, gacha games are earning billions, and the 2D is bleeding into the real world as cosplays. Being a waifu meister, I have studied the ways of the waifu closely, and I can say with much confidence, I know the inner secrets of waifu creation. I know how they are designed to activate your neurons and reel you in hook, line, and sinkers. I am not just talking about the illustration, by the way. I mean the whole package. The personality, backstory, writing, and the rest. I also have friends who work in the visual novel and gacha industries, so I have a bit of an insight into these things, even though these theories are mostly my own. In this video, I will talk about how you can use the principles of waifu and husbando designs to create really compelling NPCs for your tabletop games. And they don't even have to be a waifu or love interest. It works even if you want to create compelling normal NPCs. But before we do that, we will need to know how waifus are designed in the first place. So without further ado, welcome to CJ's Waifunomics 101 class. I will start with a reality check. 70% of waifu design is physical attractiveness. It is the sad truth, but you should know it. Luckily for gacha game companies, they can just draw flawless anime beauties at any time, due to the abundance of talented artists out there in Japan. However, focusing on drawing a better-looking anime girl has hit the point of diminishing return. So the real battlefield for gacha games company is in the personality and the connection factor to their waifus. These three factors form the golden trinity. By the way, for the game masters out there, don't worry if you can't draw. You actually have a very powerful tool at your disposal: your player's imagination. Let's do an experiment. Without any context, conjure the image of a person in your mind. A woman. Then, imagine the details of that person's visual appearance and hold that image in your mind. Now, score her attractiveness out of 10 points. How many points would you give her? Put your score in the comments below. Having done these experiments with a lot of people, I discovered that most people will say that it is either 8 or 7 points. This is because, in general, most people don't go around imagining ugly people. Unless you work in retail, that is. If you are, then I'm really sorry for you, buddy. Anyway, the point is, as a game master, you can just use your player's imagination to your advantage. Prompt them with the NPC's great personality and establish a connection. The more they like the NPC, the more attractive they will imagine them to be. I will get back to this line of thought later. But before we proceed, let me draw your attention to the Loading Cruise Waifu RPG, the complete waifu handbook. This video is not sponsored by them, but I would like to give a shout out to our fellow cultured friend Stuart. He has created a remarkable piece of RPG supplement, which is compatible to 5e Pathfinder 1 and 2. A whole book all about waifu. If I am a waifu connoisseur, then he is the sous chef. This book is currently being crowdfunded on Kickstarter. It contains 7 races and ancestries, over 12 classes and subclasses, backgrounds, feats, NPCs, and they're all about waifu. What really got my attention is the cooking and campaign rules. I think the Dire Ramen and Tarrasque a la Kaiju are really neat things to roleplay before starting your adventure. If you like what you're seeing here, then use the link below to jump over to their Kickstarter page and back the project before it is over. Okay, back to our Waifunomics 101 class. To make a top-tier waifu, the character's visual design, personality, and connection to the target audience all need to be harmonized. You should be able to know a character's personality and relationship to you at first glance. Let's use Kafka from Honkai Star Rail as example. Looking at her clothing, people familiar with Japanese office culture would immediately recognize it as the professional office lady clothing. Her jacket and gloves add to her professionalism. So without her needing to say anything, we can already tell that she is highly professional and is most likely going to interact with us as a manager or a boss would. Then, the harnesses, tall boots, and her relaxed and likely smug expression, which exudes complete confidence, further drives in the dummy-mummy personality. You know that she is the kind of person who would tease and manipulate you, instantly establishing the potential relationship dynamics between the player and the character. This is an example of a top-tier visual design. As I mentioned before, the trinity of waifu design is good looks, interesting personality, and connection to the players. The biggest challenge waifu designers face, however, is that people have different preferences. As great as her design is, Kafka may not appeal to everyone. And this is why most gacha games use the scattershot strategy, creating tons of waifus until one of them nails your specific niche. This is actually a classic strategy used in the Japanese idol industry, later adapted into K-pop and other pop groups in the region. In marketing, it is also commonly known that 1,000 true fans are worth more than 1 million customers. In the gacha games industry, the number of paying customers is usually limited to a small fraction of players, who spend most of the money. These people are called whales. But good looks and interesting personality alone is not enough to make an idol immensely popular. What the Japanese idol industry do really well is creating connection between the idols and their audience, developing parasocial relationship. There are 3 levels of connection you can achieve with a waifu. Level 1 is superficial, which can be achieved by just having the right looks and personality. Level 2 is interaction. The audience needs to know that they matter in the waifu's life, and there is reciprocity. Idols often hold meet and greet events, and VTubers read out the name of the patrons who send them super chats, and may even sing birthday songs or do banter with their fans. In gacha games, if you invest in building a 5-star character, you would expect that character to be very strong. If the opposite is true, that character will actually get ignored despite her design looking very visually appealing. At level 3, this is where you apply the darkest arts of Waifunomics. You have to create destiny. You have to make the audience believe that the waifu is actually attainable and they are made for each other. The relationship is special. In gacha games, the random draw mechanics actually adds to the value of the waifu, because if you're lucky enough to draw your favorite waifus, then it creates a sense of destiny. Even if you ended up opening your wallets and spent real money, it creates the sunk cost fallacy. If you have spent your resources on obtaining something, then it had better be good. Otherwise, you would just be a fool who had wasted his money. Another important factor in attainability is flaws, or jakten, which means weakness in Japanese. A character who is too good looking and perfect might be too intimidating to approach. So this is where you use flaws to bring the character down to the fans' level. Flaws can be physical or personality based. The waifu might have a scar, bad temper, or whatever. But the negatives are always less prominent than the positives, and it is usually non-deal-breaking flaws. Even if the waifu has pretty big flaws, like being a violent tsundere or a psychopathic yandere, as long as the flaw is not universally reviled, there is always someone out there that will take the package or believes that they can fix her. It actually adds to the appeal, because sometimes overcoming the high hurdle of simping for a hard-to-love waifu can actually be a badge of honor. If the player thinks that he is the only one who can simp for her despite her flaws, then this relationship will be special. This is a powerful combination of sunk cost fallacy and perceived destiny. One thing to be careful of is the deal breaker. The most common deal breaker for waifus is cheating. Obviously, Nobody wants a waifu who is looking for another man while you're simping for her. Then again, many players actually want to build a harem. Anyway, if you want to run a tabletop RPG campaign with waifus, here are some practical tips. Keep in mind that you can also use these techniques to create non-waifu characters, just generally compelling NPCs. First of all, you need to establish whether your players want waifu NPCs in their campaign and how comfortable you are at role-playing them. If it is too embarrassing for either the GM or player to roleplay, then it is pointless to run them. If you do want to have them, then it is possible for you to run the waifu NPC at an arm's length to reduce some cringe. Just describe what she is doing in third person rather than full-on role-playing them. The next tip is to use the scattershot technique. It is difficult to know the type of waifus and NPCs your players will like. So just create a lot of characters with unique personalities and see which one your player will gravitate towards. Then build those characters up. Don't worry about describing how good looking they are, because your players, like most people, would naturally imagine the people they like to be good looking. Once your player get attached to a waifu, then make sure that there's interaction and reciprocity. That waifu needs to contribute to the party one way or another, narratively or even mechanically. Otherwise, she will just be a distraction, or worse, a freeloader. Here is an extra point. Don't make her do things for free. Give the girl some dignity. The players need to reciprocate to her assistance too. Obviously, she can pay it forward by helping the players first, or provide more assistance than receiving them. But in general, don't let the players take her for granted. Unless the players want to start a harem, of course. Then the waifu will feel too needy if she keeps demanding things. Hey, I'm not here to judge. I'm just telling you what works. Finally, create a sense of destiny. Use dice rolls to create serendipitous and meaningful events. If you can fudge your rolls for combat, then you can also fudge your rolls for role-playing. But of course, don't get caught, or the magic will disappear. One more thing. Waifu character flaws can be endearing and add more personality. But in games, it is not necessary, because players are supposed to be the hero anyways. So you don't need to bring the waifus down to make your players feel that they have a chance. Unless your players really like waifus with low self-esteem, of course. Okay, that's it from me. End of class, CJ over and out.